General Hospital teaser. Since his initial appearance in General Hospital back in 2016, Brick has undergone one of the most remarkable evolutions in the series' history. What began as a seemingly minor, one-off role gradually transformed into one of the show's most formidable and indispensable characters. At first glance, Brick was simply the silent, behind-the-scenes security consultant to Sonny, a man trusted with gathering intelligence, running tech surveillance, and ensuring safety. But over time, Brick became something far more essential to the Corinthos organization. He morphed into the unwavering right-hand man of Sonny, the most powerful and influential figure in Port Charles. No longer just a technical asset, Brick emerged as a tactical force, a moral compass, and at times, the very shield that allowed Sonny to maintain control over his empire. His loyalty was never in question, but what made him extraordinary was the way he operated with precision, discretion, and an unwavering sense of duty. What makes this character arc even more compelling is the real-world story behind the man who plays him, Stephen A. Smith, the iconic ESPN sports commentator. Known for his passionate and bold takes on sports programming like First Take, Smith took on the role of Brick initially as a novelty, a guest appearance meant to be short-lived. His debut in 2016 was not intended to leave a lasting impression. But sometimes, charisma transcends intention. Smith's strong screen presence, his authoritative demeanor, and his ability to inhabit the world of General Hospital with ease quickly made him a fan favorite. Executives who had expected nothing more than a brief cameo quickly realized that Smith had tapped into something greater. Brick wasn't just a functional character. He had potential to be a cornerstone of the Corinthos legacy. The recent scenes featuring Brick have only solidified his reputation as a character of weight and substance. In one of the most unforgettable moments in recent GH history, Brick swiftly pulled a firearm and neutralized a threat, a nurse who was seconds away from assassinating Sonny during a moment of vulnerability. The entire sequence, filmed in slow motion, drew wild praise from the audience. Viewers across the country were riveted as Brick emerged from the shadows and reminded everyone that Sonny's security wasn't just about technology and intelligence, it was about instinct and fearlessness. Stephen A. Smith himself acknowledged how much fun he had shooting the scene, calling it hilarious and immensely satisfying, in a later interview. But beneath the laughter was a deeper truth. Smith had begun to take his role more seriously. This wasn't just a passion project anymore. This was a part of him. With rumors swirling about the possibility of Stephen A. Smith leaving his full-time sports broadcasting career to join General Hospital as a permanent fixture, fans are buzzing with anticipation. Smith, who signed a lucrative multi-year contract with ESPN, has hinted in interviews that he's open to whatever the future holds. Though he doesn't consider himself an actor by trade, he's never closed the door on exploring new opportunities, especially those that challenge him. His growing body of work, including appearances in Creed 3, Blackish, and Law and Order, only adds fuel to the speculation that Smith could be preparing for a major career pivot. And for many, that pivot could take place right in the heart of Port Charles. But Brick is not just about flash and firepower. His true strength lies in his strategic mind and unwavering attention to the subtleties around him. While Sonny is occupied with managing ongoing feuds and navigating traditional power plays, it is Brick who begins to notice quiet shifts in the legal and financial landscape, anomalies that others might dismiss. In his latest arc, Brick uncovers a deeply rooted conspiracy involving two seemingly innocuous figures, Brennan and Sidwell. On the surface, Brennan is a brilliant, ambitious attorney with a reputation for defending the underdog. Sidwell, meanwhile, poses as a calculated investor and financial strategist. But Brick's instinct tells him that these two are not merely coincidental actors in Port Charles, they are architects of a coordinated assault on the Corinthos empire. Brick digs deeper and discovers a trail of connections between Brennan and former victims of Sonny's past operations, people who have long buried their grievances, now being recruited to reopen old wounds. Brennan, with her sharp legal mind and relentless pursuit of justice, has been building a case to destabilize Sonny by attacking his operations from the courtroom. At the same time, Sidwell has been quietly acquiring shares in companies tied to Sonny's legitimate businesses, manipulating contracts, and engineering financial blackouts aimed at undercutting Sonny's economic foothold in the city. These efforts are not accidental. They are surgical strikes designed to paralyze Sonny's influence from within, not through brute force, but through calculated erosion. What makes Brick invaluable in this moment is not just his ability to detect the conspiracy, but his capacity to operate with surgical precision to dismantle it, without drawing attention to himself. Brick begins assembling a counterintelligence operation. He starts tracking digital footprints, intercepting encrypted communications, and securing insider information through a network of contacts built during his years in covert operations. He uses these tools to expose the real nature of Brennan's legal team and trace Sidwell's financial activities back to offshore accounts linked to individuals associated with Helena Cassadine, a revelation that reframes Sidwell not just as a business rival, but as a potential heir to a far more sinister legacy. Brick doesn't simply bring this information to Sonny and walk away. He devises a two-tiered strategy, one that involves dismantling Brennan's legal assault while simultaneously draining Sidwell's access to capital. Working in tandem with Diane, Brick sets up a series of legal traps and business decoys, leading both Brennan and Sidwell into overextending their efforts. As their schemes unravel, the two conspirators find themselves exposed, isolated, and vulnerable, not to brute retaliation, but to the very systems they tried to weaponize. Brick ensures that every move is legal, every blow is measured, and every action leaves Sonny unscathed and more powerful than before. The success of this campaign does more than protect Sonny. It cements Brick as a figure of singular importance in the General Hospital universe, no longer relegated to the periphery. Brick stands as a fully realized character with emotional depth, narrative agency, and powerful screen presence. And as Stephen A. Smith embraces this evolution, the line between the commentator and the character begins to blur. In Brick, Smith has found not just a role, but a legacy, one that could redefine both his career and the future of General Hospital. No one had expected that Brick, often dismissed as merely a bodyguard operating on the periphery of Sonny's power structure, would emerge as the single most vital force capable of connecting the dots in a web of deception that had been intricately woven around the Corinthos empire. While others were focused on street-level threats, courtroom dramas, and the shifting tides of alliances in Port Charles, Brick was observing in silence, collecting fragments of anomalies, inconsistencies, and shadowy movements. His years of experience in intelligence work, coupled with his extensive network of contacts both inside and outside the country, gave him an advantage no one else possessed. It was this unique vantage point that allowed Brick to uncover the truth no one else had dared to imagine. Sidwell, the shrewd financial strategist gaining influence in the city's business scene, had a direct and deliberate connection to Helena Cassadine, the infamous matriarch of one of Port Charles's most dangerous legacies. The evidence suggested that Sidwell was not just building a business empire, but reviving the Cassadine shadow regime under a new face, masked by legal contracts and economic manipulation. Realizing the gravity of what he had uncovered, Brick knew there was no time to wait. A passive response could be fatal, not just to Sonny's control, but to the safety of Port Charles itself. Brick conceived a dual-pronged operation, a strategy that required precise timing, technical expertise, and psychological warfare. His first move was to infiltrate Brennan's law firm, where she had been building a legal case against Sonny. Using his connections in cybersurveillance, Brick quietly inserted tracking and extraction software into the firm's mainframe, allowing him to download confidential documents without detection. Among the files, he uncovered damning evidence. Brennan had been receiving clandestine funding from an Eastern European financial syndicate with direct links to former Cassadine allies, an organization long believed to be disbanded, but now reawakening through her. With that data secured, Brick targeted one of Brennan's closest associates, a young partner who had unknowingly signed off on many of the firm's illicit transactions. Brick confronted this individual privately, not with threats or brute force, but with hard, inescapable facts. Faced with potential disbarment, financial ruin, and even criminal charges, the associate had no choice but to cooperate. Through this maneuver, Brick destabilized Brennan's legal team from within, neutralizing her ability to launch a coordinated legal attack against Sonny at the precise moment she was preparing to file suit. But Brick wasn't done. At the same time, he executed the second arm of his strategy. Working with Diane, Sonny's brilliant legal advisor, Brick had quietly established a shell company, a seemingly innocuous holding firm with no visible ties to the Corinthos name. Through this entity, they began to acquire key assets and contracts that Sidwell had been manipulating for months. One by one, the dominoes fell. Sidwell's offshore accounts were exposed through forensic accounting techniques deployed by a team Brick had cultivated during his years in private intelligence. His complex financial web began to unravel, and deals he had leveraged to corner Sonny in the legitimate market were systematically reversed, blocked, or redirected. The shadow empire Sidwell was building began to collapse before it had the chance to rise. When Brick finally presented the full extent of his findings and actions to Sonny, the mob boss, a man rarely shaken, was momentarily speechless. The depth, precision, and foresight involved in Brick's operation were staggering. Sonny had long known Brick to be reliable, intelligent, and effective. But what he had just witnessed was beyond operational excellence. It was strategic mastery. Brick had not only saved him from imminent legal and financial disaster, but had erected an invisible wall of protection that would deter future attacks, a firewall built not of muscle and bullets, but of information, leverage, and silence. Recognizing this, Sonny made a decision that would reshape the structure of the Corinthos organization permanently. He appointed Brick not just as a bodyguard, not merely as an advisor, but as the official head of the Corinthos Strategic Division, an elite, off-the-books unit that operated independently of traditional command, accountable only to Sonny himself. This division would focus on intelligence, economic warfare, and preemptive disruption of threats. Brick was given full authority to recruit operatives, utilize advanced surveillance technology, and build an infrastructure capable of handling both criminal and corporate challenges. He was no longer just a man with a gun or a voice in Sonny's ear. He was now a general in the war for Port Charles, a war fought not only in the streets, but in boardrooms, courtrooms, and the shadows. This appointment marked a turning point not only for Brick as a character, but for the narrative trajectory of General Hospital itself. In a show long known for its emotional drama and interpersonal entanglements, Brick brought a new flavor: espionage, counterintelligence, and high-stakes tactical warfare. His rise reshaped the balance of power and introduced a darker, more complex layer to the Corinthos legacy. No longer just about physical domination or emotional persuasion. Sonny's empire was now fortified by strategy, foresight, and precision, with Brick as its mastermind. And through it all, Stephen X. Smith, once thought to be just a charismatic guest star, had embedded himself into the fabric of the show's mythology. In real life, he continued to stir rumors of stepping away from sports media to embrace a full-time role on General Hospital. If that day comes, it will not just mark the next chapter for Brick, it will signal a new era in daytime television where storytelling, intelligence, and action converge in ways few had imagined. Brick, the once silent enforcer, had become the silent architect of power, and nothing in Port Charles would ever be the same again. At the same time that Brick's role within General Hospital was becoming more critical and deeply woven into the narrative structure of Port Charles, a different kind of buzz was building in the real world, one that centered around the man behind the character. News began to spread across entertainment circles and fan communities that Stephen A. Smith, the unmistakable voice of ESPN's First Take, might be seriously considering transitioning to a full-time position on General Hospital. It was a development that stunned some and thrilled many. While Smith has long been known for his sharp-witted, often confrontational style as a sports commentator, his recent performances as Brick, layered with intensity, strategic brilliance, and emotional restraint, have earned him widespread praise and opened up possibilities far beyond the realm of sports broadcasting. Currently, Smith sits at the pinnacle of his broadcasting career. As the host of First Take, one of ESPN's flagship morning programs, he commands a staggering audience and has become a household name among sports fans. His most recent contract with the network, a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal rumored to be worth in the eight-figure range, solidified his place as one of the most powerful voices in modern media. Yet despite this unprecedented success, Smith has not ruled out the idea of pivoting to a different kind of storytelling. In multiple interviews, he's acknowledged the thrill he finds in acting and the joy of working on a show like General Hospital. "I don't consider myself an actor," Smith admitted candidly. "But I'm open to whatever the future may hold. You never know where life is going to take you." That humble yet forward-looking perspective has set fire to speculation. If Smith does indeed choose to step away, even partially, from his role at ESPN, the prospect of him joining General Hospital full-time would represent not just a career shift, but a seismic change in the daytime television landscape. Brick, a role once envisioned as a background security expert with minimal dialogue and limited screen time, would be elevated to the status of a central figure, a character around whom major storylines could revolve. The transformation would not only enrich the show's narrative potential, but also attract a fresh wave of viewers who may be curious to follow Smith's acting journey. Should this transition become reality, General Hospital would find itself with a golden opportunity to reimagine its approach to crime, power, and political intrigue. Brick would no longer be a peripheral fixer brought in during high-stakes emergencies. He would become the epicenter of a new age of storytelling, one where espionage, covert alliances, betrayals from within, and corporate warfare dominate the canvas. His analytical mind and composed demeanor would contrast perfectly with the impulsive and emotionally driven characters that populate Port Charles, making him an anchor of calm logic amidst chaos. Storylines could delve deeper into the geopolitical consequences of organized crime, explore international connections, and introduce layers of suspense previously unexplored in the show's traditional arcs. What makes this evolution so appealing to fans is the naturalness with which Smith has embodied Brick. He brings to the screen a kind of stoic confidence that doesn't beg for attention but commands it anyway. In a town filled with characters who wear their emotions on their sleeves, Brick stands out as a thinker, a planner, a protector who understands that power is best wielded with restraint. If given the screen time and narrative weight, his presence could redefine what it means to be a power player in Port Charles, not through physical intimidation or emotional manipulation, but through intelligence, technology, and an unshakable moral compass. Moreover, Brick's full-time inclusion would allow for a deeper exploration of his backstory, his training, the people he's lost, the moral dilemmas he's faced in his past work, and how he reconciles that with his loyalty to Sonny. Fans would finally get to see the man behind the stoic exterior. And Smith would have the chance to stretch his dramatic range in ways that no cameo appearance could ever allow. The character could evolve into something truly iconic, the kind of role that defines a decade of storytelling and leaves an enduring mark on the show's mythology. From a production standpoint, it would also signal a savvy move by General Hospital. By casting someone of Smith's profile in a leading role, the show would benefit from broader cultural visibility. Smith brings with him not only a massive fanbase from the world of sports, but also media credibility and crossover appeal that few daytime actors can match. Interviews, media appearances, and social buzz would naturally follow, rejuvenating interest in General Hospital among lapsed viewers and introducing it to entirely new demographics. And let's not forget the symbolic power of Smith's journey. His rise from a guest star in a single 2016 episode to potentially becoming one of the central figures of the show encapsulates the very heart of soap opera storytelling, transformation, resilience, and unexpected twists of fate. In many ways, Brick's ascent mirrors that of Stephen Smith himself, underestimated at first, but ultimately impossible to ignore. So, if Smith takes that leap, if he commits fully to General Hospital and makes Brick more than just a background player, it could be one of the most strategic and inspired moves the show has made in decades. It would breathe new life into long-running plotlines, elevate the dramatic stakes, and offer a fresh narrative dynamic that blends old-school loyalty with new-school intelligence and intrigue. And in the end, whether he remains a multi-platform powerhouse juggling sports and soap operas, or embraces General Hospital full-time, one thing is certain: Stephen A. Smith has already left a lasting impact on Port Charles. If Brick's future is anything like his recent past, then General Hospital may be on the cusp of entering a golden era, one where every shadow has a watcher, every secret has a listener, and at the center of it all stands a man named Brick, holding the balance of power in his silent, steady hands.